Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Thursday. We're waiting on John Shannon, NHL Analyst. Today's guest brought to you by Optic Foliar, the only lights-on spray with no damage and no burning to your plant leaves. Plant efficiency, nutrition, and results all combined into a single solution for all stages of growth and safe to use on flowers. Spray it, see it, believe it. Optic Foliar. Visit this made-in-BC company online at opticfoliar.ca. We mentioned the breaking news regarding Thatcher Demko and JT Miller as the Canucks prepare to host Florida tomorrow. This tweet from Dan Murphy of Sportsnet.
Yep.
Earlier this show, we raved about Sportsnet. Demko and Miller. We got that, Ryan? We got the tweet?
The Murph tweet.
I can just read it. We don't have to see it. But Demko and Miller both tested positive via rapid tests this morning. There you go. Canucks are now waiting for lab results from PCR tests. So, as we mentioned, Demko and Miller not on the ice with the Canucks at practice. And, of course, if I may, Halak already in protocol. They made some paperwork moves with DiPietro today, so it all makes sense. And there's also Spencer Martin, who's played all of 3 NHL games in his career with Colorado, 26 years old. Kind of lucky they have him right now.
And who's here tomorrow? The number 1 team in the NHL. And who's here on Sunday? Another top 10 team.
Yeah, St. Louis.
Oh, boy. Canucks are going to hope and pray that Miller and Demko are ready tomorrow.
Yep. No question about that. And then you've also got Garland. You've got Horvat. You mentioned Miller, and I know Pettersson's playing center now. But so you face the possibility of being without your top 2 goaltenders in the organization, and your top 2 centers if you don't include Pettersson in the mix, which was the case earlier in the season. And you're taking on the sizzling hot Florida Panthers.
Well, the scary one for me is Demko, because he's been so unbelievable, and to play without him, oh boy. You got something, right?
We got John Shannon.
Oh, okay.
Right now. Let me just say this too before we get to John. One of the frustration, I mean, so much is frustrating when it comes to COVID. I get that, okay. But one of the frustrating parts or aspects for the Canucks and for all the players involved, the whole organization, fans, you name it, is that we heard the news earlier this week that the NHL will not be testing players who are asymptomatic after the All-Star break. But as of right now, that isn't the case. Miller and Demko aren't on the ice, and they wait the results of the PCR test. Okay, John Shannon joins us now, NHL analyst, co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, boys. Also add Yarrow Halak to that list, will you?
Yeah, I believe we did, but we stand corrected if we didn't. Hey, John, when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers, there's just so much to talk about. But why don't we start with where we ended off with Farhan? You're a member of the media. Matheson versus Draisaitl. Are you on anybody's side there?
I think they both screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
I've known Jim since I started to do games in Edmonton in 1979, and Jim Matheson is a consummate professional, but let's face it, his world has changed in the last 2 years, just like all of ours has changed. You don't get those one-on-one conversations. You don't get that dressing room access. You're in a pool of reporters every day, and it's difficult to do the job to the same level as you've always wanted to do it. On the other side, Leon Draisaitl's team is 2-10-2, and I'd be disappointed if he walked out and smiled and gave a dissertation of War and Peace. It's one of those things where I'm kind of mad or glad that he's mad and that he's upset. And Jim was upset that he didn't get the kind of response he wanted. I understand that. So both of them, I'd send both of them to the penalty box for 2 minutes.
Is Evander Kane going to play there, John, if he's not suspended?
Boy, I don't know. They certainly have made overtures. The Oilers are actually in their pro and amateur scouting meetings right now in California, so I'm sure it's been a heated discussion about what Kane can do. They obviously need some scoring. They need to find ways other than using Draisaitl and McDavid as the vehicles to put the puck in the net. And let's face it, neither of those guys have been doing very, very much of that in the last few games. But I do believe that the organization has heard of pushback in the community. I'm not sure that that's occurred at the sponsor level yet, but there has been some pushback about how difficult it would be to add Evander Kane to the roster. So I think it's still up in the air, and perhaps a few people in the organization are maybe hoping, I'm not saying they're all hoping this, but maybe hoping that Gary Bettman and Bill Daly don't make it possible for the Oilers to sign him.
John, we're down to the, I would say, final strokes for the new GM of the Vancouver Canucks. I think Mellanby and Alvin are in town right now for last interviews. How do you see this shaping up? You got a winner? Are you leaning towards anybody? I mean, it looks like it's going to be a first-time GM in Vancouver, which is okay by everybody, but what are your thoughts?
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, Rick. I mean, let's face it, when you have Jim Rutherford in the corner office, you know that you're getting someone who's going to learn from a champion, a Stanley Cup champion, and that's important. Personal biases aside, because I have known Scott since he was 8 years old, I'd love for Scott Mellanby to be a general manager in the National Hockey League, but I keep hearing Patrick Alvin this was his job, and this was somebody on Jim's list from the moment he got the job in Vancouver. So to me, I personally, I would love to see Scott get it, but I keep hearing that it's Patrick Alvin's job, and then we'll see what happens with the other, because I do believe there are more appointments than just the one coming, whether it's 2 assistant GMs or a single assistant GM now and someone later that will fill the void in the front office.
You know, John, I mentioned to Jim last night, for the first time, he's going to conduct a trade deadline in the Canadian market. He's already heard the rumors. He told me last night, you know what, it's going to be rumor central here. We're already hearing JT Miller's name, Tyler Mott's name has popped up, but he's going to get a bird's eye view of a trade deadline in Vancouver, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a whole lot different than the ones he conducted in Pittsburgh.
You know, this is a classic case, Rick, of be careful of what you wish for.
Yeah.
For both Jim and Bruce.
Yeah.
Who, again, I've known them for a long time and they have yearned to work in Canada, yearned to work for a big market Canadian franchise. Because where they've worked, they're not, or rarely are they the front page story. Whether it be in North Carolina or in Washington, D.C. or in Minnesota, even with the Wild. But, you know, they're now they are in the frying pan. But that's what they wanted. They wanted to be part of this. You never stop learning. So that learning curve for Jim Rutherford, I am sure he's already understood how deep and intense the passion is for the Canucks. And for the game of hockey in our country. Yeah, he's a good Toronto boy. He understands that from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
John, some reporters from Montreal was in Arizona earlier this week in Glendale, and reporters from Montreal tweeted out, at least one of them did, shots of the crowd in Glendale. Just nobody there. This comes in the wake of Gary Bettman meeting with officials from the Quebec government about a return of the NHL to Quebec City, saying it's not going to happen. How is that justified, and what do you think the chances are somewhere down the road of the return of the Nordiques?
Miracle.
Yeah.
It'll have to be a miracle.
Yep.
It will have to be something as drastic as what we saw in Atlanta to Winnipeg. I mean, the only way the Winnipeg Jets exist today is that they were at the end of the rope in Atlanta. The owners there couldn't get along. Gary couldn't find a buyer. Nobody wanted to be part of what the Thrashers were. So they had to find a place for a franchise quickly. And Mark Chipman and David Thompson were the answer in Winnipeg. That's the only occurrence that I think can be replicated in order for a team to go to Quebec. And you know what? What's happening now, guys, with the evolution of sports betting and gambling with legalized gambling, I think we're 20 or 30 years before Gary Bettman will not have a franchise that won't have a list of potential owners with it. I think that's just a fact of life. You know, this guy, Alex Morello, owns casinos. He owns entertainment networks. Alex Morello will not give up quickly in this one. And they will find a way to make it work. And if they don't find a way to make it work, somebody who has ties to sports gambling and betting will find a way to make it work in Arizona one more time. It's just not going to happen unless it's a miracle.
Yeah. You'd like to have more than flies in the building, though, in a perfect world.
Well, you could be in Winnipeg, Ottawa, Toronto, or Montreal right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they'll get over that, though. Well, we hope. Quickly, John, what sold the Habs on Kent Hughes, and what's his number one priority?
I mean, I think his number one priority now is to find out really how far he can take the contracts and move as many people out and really start a youth movement. You know, how do they manage to get out of the Weber contract somehow, some way? I'm not sure it's possible. But the reason I think Kent Hughes got the job, I believe that it's a key part of success is that Jeff Gordon needed a confidant and someone he could trust on a daily basis. They have known each other for a long period of time. You know, quite frankly, Jeff Gordon did not know Patrick Waugh very well and probably didn't. The longest conversation they ever had was their interview. So this became a job of trust and loyalty. And I think that had to happen, particularly when you consider that Jeff Gordon's first language is not French. Yeah. And I think he needed to have somebody he could trust on a daily basis.
Yep. John, thanks for this. Appreciate it. Talk to you next Thursday.
Cheers, boys.